I'm Leah, 17 years old, and I live in a small town in Oregon. We get a lot of rain here, but that night, the storm felt different. It was heavier, louder, and somehow, it made everything feel darker. My parents were out of town, and I was alone in our two-story house, surrounded by trees that cast shadows on the walls whenever lightning flashed. It was around midnight, and I was studying in my room. I'm not usually afraid of storms, but there was something unsettling about the way the rain tapped against my window. Suddenly, the power flickered. I sighed, figuring it was just the weather, and carried on. Then, about 10 minutes later, the lights in my room flickered again, but only in my room. I looked around, a bit annoyed but more confused than scared. Maybe it was a loose bulb. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I got up and walked to the breaker box in the hallway, hoping maybe flipping the switch would fix it. As soon as I opened my door, the lights in my room flickered again, only this time in a slow, almost deliberate rhythm. I hesitated, standing there, staring at the dim, blinking light. When I finally peeked back into my room, my heart skipped a beat. The light had gone off completely, but that wasn't the only thing. My closet door, the one I had definitely closed before bed, was slightly open. I froze. For a moment, I convinced myself I must have forgotten to close it. But I knew I hadn't. My mind raced with explanations. Maybe the wind or even just the way the house shifted during storms. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. As I stood there, trying to muster the courage to check the closet, I heard a faint sound. It was so soft, like someone gently moving inside. My stomach twisted as fear settled in. I slowly backed out of the room, not daring to take my eyes off the closet. I crept down the hallway, grabbing the baseball bat my dad kept in the corner. With the bat in my hands, I felt a tiny bit braver, though my heart was racing. I waited outside my room, barely breathing, listening for any sound, any sign of movement. Then, in the darkness, I heard it again. A soft, almost muffled rustling, as if someone was shifting their weight ever so slightly inside the closet. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the doorway, gripping the bat, my eyes fixed on the dark outline of my room. Every now and then, I'd hear that faint rustling, and each time, my grip tightened. My phone was dead, and there was no way I was going to make a run downstairs to charge it. So I just waited, feeling every second drag by until morning. When the first hint of daylight crept in, I finally found the courage to check. I nudged open the closet door, my hands shaking. Inside, it was empty, just clothes and shoes. But on the floor, I saw something that stopped my heart. A single muddy footprint. I never found out who, or what, was in my closet that night. I'm Tom, 16 years old, and I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood. My parents had left me alone for the weekend, which usually felt like freedom, but this time it was different. It was a chilly October night, and everything was silent except for the occasional rustling of leaves outside. Around midnight, I was in the living room, playing a game on my phone when I caught some movement from the corner of my eye. I looked up and saw Mr. Hall, my next-door neighbor, standing by his window, waving his arms wildly. His house was dark, but he looked frantic, almost desperate. I figured something was wrong, so I went outside to see if he needed help. As I got closer, Mr. Hall just stood there, staring at me with this strange, blank expression. It felt like he was looking right through me. I asked, "Mr. Hall, is everything okay?" He didn't answer right away, just kept staring. Then he said, "Did you see him? The man in your backyard?" My heart started pounding. I turned around, scanning the yard behind me, but it was too dark to see much. "What man?" I asked, my voice shaky. Mr. Hall didn't answer. He just kept looking at me with that strange, hollow expression. I started feeling really uncomfortable, so I mumbled something about going back inside and hurried toward my house. But as soon as I got to the door, I looked back over my shoulder, and he was still there, standing at his window watching me. I locked the door behind me, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. But every few minutes, I found myself glancing out the window. And each time, there he was, Mr. Hall, still staring, still making that subtle motion for me to come back outside. Around 2 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I shut all the curtains, turned off the lights, and tried to calm down. I kept telling myself that maybe Mr. Hall was just confused or something. But that look on his face, the way he had talked about a man in my backyard, it wouldn't leave my mind. Eventually, I fell asleep, though it was a restless, uneasy sleep. When I woke up the next morning, the first thing I did was look out the window. Mr. Hall's house looked normal, and there was no sign of him at the window. I felt a small relief, thinking maybe I'd just imagined the whole thing. Later that morning, my mom called to check in. I casually mentioned what had happened with Mr. Hall, laughing a little, trying to make light of it. But my mom went silent for a moment and then said, "Tom, Mr. Hall's been at his daughter's house across town since yesterday. He wasn't even home last night." I hung up, my hands shaking, my heart racing. To this day, I have no idea who, or what, was watching me from Mr. Hall's window that night. And every time I pass his house, I can't help but feel like someone's still watching me. I'm Rena, 15 years old, and I live in a small, quiet town in California. My parents had gone out for the evening, leaving me home alone to catch up on my homework. I wasn't really scared of being by myself. I'd stayed home alone plenty of times before, but tonight felt different, and I couldn't put my finger on why. I was sitting at my desk, typing up an assignment, when I decided to take a break. I went to the kitchen to grab a snack, but as I passed by the front hallway, I noticed something strange. The front door was slightly open. I was sure I had locked it after my family left, but maybe I'd just forgotten. I walked over, calling out, "Mom, Dad?" But there was no answer. The house was silent, too silent. A chill ran down my spine as I shut the door, locking it carefully this time. I shrugged it off, blaming my overactive imagination and telling myself it was probably just the wind. But just as I turned to head back to my room, I heard it, the sound of water running. The bathroom faucet had turned on by itself. I froze in place, my heart racing. I hadn't used that bathroom all day. Slowly, I tiptoed toward the sound, my footsteps barely making a sound on the wooden floor. The closer I got, the louder the water seemed, and with every step, a knot of fear tightened in my stomach. As I reached the bathroom door, I noticed that my phone, which I'd left on my bed, was missing. My heart started pounding harder. I hadn't touched it since I started my homework. I pushed the bathroom door open just a crack and peeked in. There, on the bathroom sink, was my phone, standing upright, facing the room, recording. My hands started shaking as I reached over and picked up my phone, turning off the video. I felt a sickening chill as I opened the gallery. The last video showed me walking through the hallway and into the bathroom, as if someone had been watching from behind me. My heart hammered as I scanned the room, but there was no one else in there. A sense of dread washed over me. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was in the house watching me. I grabbed my phone and hurried to the front door, triple-checking that it was locked. I thought about calling my parents, but they were too far away to come home quickly, and I didn't want to sound paranoid. I spent the rest of the night huddled on the couch, holding my phone and watching every corner, every shadow. Every little creak made me jump, my mind racing with thoughts of who could have been watching me. Who had placed my phone in that eerie, silent bathroom? When my family finally came home, I tried to explain, but they brushed it off, saying it was just my imagination. But I know what I saw, and to this day, I still wonder who was there, and if they ever left at all.